Bloody elevator. Come on. I don't know what's wrong with me. I haven't had a drink yet. Ah. Let's sort that out with this. Oh god, that's foamy. Oh, that's well carb. Bloody Jesus. Stone go to IPA. Right, fellas. Dicking around. I've got another Q&A. Another Q&A. Another Q&A, fellas. Another Q&A. This one, I'm having to do it really quickly after posting that we were doing a Q&A because I've just got an abundance of questions. And if I leave it any longer, you don't have a list as long as my arm. It's already going to be quite a long video, so get yourself a bevy. The hell's up with that? Tastes alright, it's just really carbonated. I struggle to get that down. Okay, kicking things off with Gert Madsen. He's left a comment saying favourite beer style and their least favourite beer style. Without being a cliche about it, it would have to be an American IPA. I am a sucker for a big, juicy, tropical hot bomb of an IPA kind of guy. It's probably the beer that I tend to brew up mostly, that sort of style. And if I'm not doing a big old punchy American IPA, then I'm introducing them sort of flavours into lower ABV'd pales and things like that. My least favourite is possibly, well, have I got a least favourite one? But possibly a lager. I know you can get lagers out there that are real top draw, but the lagers are mainly for a crisp, refreshing, easy drinking bevy. And there's a time and place for them. I do like to crack a few open in the summer times, but winter times not so much. Whereas a hoppy IPA I can drink all year round. But I don't really have a least favourite. Matt Goss, he's put, why do you not rehydrate your yeast before pitching? And this question got 2 thumbs up. Okay, so this is one of them questions which the answer to is really a preference. There are pros and cons to rehydrating dried yeast. Okay, so I don't rehydrate it, I never have. And my logic behind it is that because I've not had any stressed yeast, I look after the fermentation, temperatures and whatnot, and every time it's producing a nice quality beer. So the yeast is giving me what I want from it. It's not giving me any esters, it's not giving me any off flavours. It ferments well, it ferments to where it's supposed to ferment to. And so on that ground, I don't think I'd stop just pitching yeast dry straight out of the pack without rehydrating. So some people say rehydrate the yeast. It's getting it active, it's waking it up out of its slumber, and it's getting them cells energised and awake, ready so that when they jump into that wort of sugary goodness, they're already hitting the track with a running sprint. Whereas dry yeast is waking up as you hit it into that wort. However, for me, when rehydrating the yeast, you've got to faff about a little bit extra, making sure everything's sterile, making sure that your water that you're rehydrating your yeast in is more or less the same temperature as the water that's gone into your fermenter, so you don't get temperature shock. And all these little bits can result in yeast death. And the same can be said about pitching dry yeast straight into the beer. You're going to get cell loss. They reckon around 30% of your 200 billion cells is going to perish, but leave enough to kick off. And some of the reasons behind that, so I've read, is that when you rehydrate yeast, dry yeast, the cell wall is unable to regulate what's passing through it. And so if you're rehydrating too warm, then it's just going to leach through and drag the innards out of the cell, and it says on the article I read that you would have a 60% cull in your yeast, which would be catastrophic. That being said, pitching dry yeast directly into your wort, the sugar in the wort will do the same. It'll pass through the cell wall and destroy the cell. But you're only losing on average, they say, around 30% of your 200 billion yeast cells. You've still got plenty in there to kick off a good fermentation. But that's effective. You have to weigh up the options. Do you want the extra faff and making sure that you're taking a little bit more care on getting everything up and ready and mobilised to enter the wort? Or are you just going to lose 30% and still have enough to kick off a good fermentation? So it's up to you, it's a personal preference. But for me, it's not worth it. And for the price of dry yeast, just pitch 2 packs if that's what you're worried about. That loss due to pitching dry, pitch 2 packs of dry yeast and you're golden anyway. But I've not had a problem with fermentation, not had stressed yeast. I look after it. The other thing is that the yeast I'm pitching dry is going into a good temperature to start with. So it's not going in too high and then cooling down and then starting fermentation. It's going in at more or less fermentation temperatures, no more than 20 degrees. It'll be like 19 degrees. I'll probably ferment it at 18 degrees. So I do look after the yeast and give it the care it deserves during fermentation, but it's a personal preference. And also, the majority of the beers that I'm brewing are of a lower ABV, which helps when pitching dry yeast. That's what they say anyway. That's what I've read. Callum Bennett has put, will you be doing a brew of the Mango Lassie IPA that Abbey Brewing did? That beer looked amazing. I have to be honest with you, I haven't a clue what you're on about, but I will check it out. Brett Cooper, how the fucking hell do you remember which hose goes where when changing from Herms recirculation to sparge? I always get mine mixed up mid-brew day. And that had a 1 thumb up. And Brett, you ain't friggin' alone, buddy. I do it every time. Cock them up every friggin' time. The problem I've got though with my hose is that when I bought the hose I was stingy and bought literally just enough to do it. So each hose goes on a particular part of a pot or pump. So if I had, how many have I got there? 3 or 4. So if I had 3 or 4 hoses that were all much longer than they need to be, it wouldn't friggin' matter which one I picked up and put on. But because they're all different lengths, I have to put them exactly where they need to be. But I feel your pain, buddy. Steve Gaston, your update McKellar Stout video, you mentioned giving it a diacetyl rest. Why do you do this? As normally done with the lagering. Well, yeah, it's essential with lagering because you've fermented the yeast at a much lower temperature. So although the lager yeast is doing its thing, it is doing it slower and a little bit more sluggish like, and so it's crucial for a lager to up them temps to give it a bit of a boost to clean up after itself. But the same can be said about your ales when you're brewing your ales. So I've lowered my brewing temperatures. I used to brew at like 19 degrees, then I dropped it down to 18 degrees, and I think the last one before this, or maybe it was even the McKellar one, I fermented it at like 17.5 degrees, and so it's a little bit chillier than what I would normally ferment at, but it's good practice to do a diacetyl rest at the end. Just up it a bit, just knock it up to 20 degrees from 18 degrees, and just make sure that everything's happy. So it sort of re-energizes that yeast that's got tired after doing its fermentation. It just gives it a little bit of a boost, a little bit of heat, just to run around and clean up after itself. So very, very crucial on a lager, but also not a bad idea to do on an ale. Homer Recluse has put, what percent ABV do you normally try to get? I'm aiming for 6% ABV as it lasts longer. I normally brew the beers up around 4.5%, which means that I can enjoy a few before starting to feel the effects. So if I'm running around with the kids, or if I'm gardening, or if I've got people round, I can have 2 or 3 and not really, but still get the nice flavours that I'm wanting. This Macalester Stout that's turned up at 9%, I can have half a glass and feel it, so I can't really drink too much of that, although I would like to, but I have obligations to do. I have to run around after the kids and things like that, and I don't want to be doing that pissed up, you know what I mean? I don't want to see it that pissed up. That having been said, it's a good exercise brewing session beers, because obviously you're using less grain, the grain bill's smaller, and it's a good exercise, I found, to concentrate on brewing the lower ABV beers, because you have, especially the pails, because there's nowhere to hide really in a pail, and so it tends to speed up the learning process of making sure everything's right, so you're not getting off flavours, making sure everything's balanced because there's nowhere to hide, and getting maximum flavour with less grain. So it's a good learning curve to tackle. It's a good exercise to hone some skills. James Jimmy Saxton, what a friggin' name. How do you keep your beard looking so silky smooth? And then there's a crazy lady underneath that's commented, that's my wife, she's put coconut oil. This coconut oil thing, it's a long story, but basically we cook with coconut oil because it's healthier for you. And I came into the kitchen one day and my wife was smothering it all over her face, straight out the jar next to the frying pan, and it made me laugh. And I ridiculed her for it and made a bit of a joke. And then I thought, well, I've heard it's good for you. It's good for your skin, good for your hair. And I started to trim the beard underneath here a little bit and tidy it up, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to take some care of it. And I'm going to rub some coconut oil in it. And I smell like friggin' Paradise Island. Dave, you son of a gun, do you wipe with left or right? And is it up and down or a circular motion? I don't polish the car, so I don't friggin' know. Tony Yates, how do you feel about being the most charismatic brewer alive? It's a tough job. Someone's got to do it. And then Harry's put underneath there, until Harry Brew 69 returns, and then I've put for a week. Do you have an address I can send beer to? It's from Harry. Harry, I know we've not seen each other yet this year. I know it's been like the 9th month of this year and we still haven't seen each other. I know it's been that long, but surely you know where I live by now. Simon Thornhill, how the hell can I grow a magnificent beard like yours? Do what I did and buy it from a website. Sticks on, never comes off. How do you work out your brew house efficiencies? Beersmith. Dan Smith, how's Flask Gordon doing? Can there be 2 and can they be delivered to Norway? Flask Gordon is doing well. It's currently, to my knowledge, on its 3rd journey. Went to Harry, went to Ian, and now Homebrew Chris has got it. So it seems to be doing alright, although when Chris got it, there wasn't a pop when he took the lid off, which means that there was a lack of carbonation, which means one of 2 things. The thing is leaking, or it wasn't carved up properly from Ian. But I don't know. All I can say is make sure that lid's cranked all the way down. Don't cross thread it, but make sure it's cranked all the way friggin' down. It should be golden, because it went from Harry's to France and kept its carbonation. No, there can't be 2 because of the friggin' pain we had getting this one up and running. It's just like the 3rd attempt. And can it be delivered to Norway? Well, it's funny because Ian has sort of helped out a little bit by taking it to France. It survived the long car journey, boat journey, plane journey, whatever it took, all the way to France, and held its carbonation. So, possibly, but the aim for it is to get it travelling around the UK, and once it's done what it's supposed to do around the UK, and everyone's had all of it, then we may think about getting it international. John Orchgis Jr. He's put the same thing. Do you plan on sending Flask Gordon to the good old US of A? Once it's done the rounds around the UK, like I've just said, then we'll look into international. But it'd be pretty cool. Jay Corey, what else do you like to do with coconut oil? Wouldn't you like to know? James Bishop, where is Flash? This post has been edited to correct spellings. I've already said. But the thing is with the Flask Gordon, to stop everyone losing track of it, the original plan was to get it so that when you had it, you updated where the flask is, what was in it, what's going out and where's it going in the NewToHomeBrew Facebook page. So if you do get the flask, if you do a video on it, pop it up there. If you don't want to do a video on it, just put a post just saying where it is, and then people can follow the progress. So Chris, Homebrew Chris. So Chris, wherever you're sending it next, bud, just pop it in there and people will know. I need another beer. This one's gassing me up. Moving swiftly on. Darren Darby. Trip over that plastic pear again. Bloody dog. Right, Darren Darby. Have you ever considered brewing a bag, or perhaps a brew in a bag setup with your current system whilst recirculating the mash liquor to possibly save on brew day time / benefit / downsides regarding efficiency? I can't really give any information on the benefits of brewing a bag. There are other people out there that have done before going all grain, like Sam the Thrifty Brewer over in Canada. He can probably give you a little bit more information on the benefits of or downsides to brewing a bag over the all grain 3 vessel system. And there's other people that do brewing a bag. But for me to use brewing a bag with my setup would not benefit me at all. The grain that's in the mash tun already, when mashing, is already recirculating. It's going through the Herms coil to maintain a temp, so it's always moving through the grain bed, so my efficiencies are good for that. But in regards to saving time on a brew day and benefits and downsides to it, I can't comment because I haven't done it. Andrew Rosta, what's your favourite hop, malt and yeast? Right, favourite hop. It's very difficult to name them because they're all friggin' awesome. But it all comes down to what I use the most, and I use it the most because obviously I like what it's given me. So, favourite hops, it's got to be your Mosaic, what everyone goes for, your Mosaic, your Galaxies, the hops that are giving the nice tropical fruits. That's what I like over the piney, resiny IPA flavours. Malt, probably it's probably what I use for my base malt 98% of the time, which is Marisota. I like what it brings to the party, especially in like a pale or something like that. And yeast, US-05. I read, that that dry yeast is at a standard now where it's as good a quality as liquid yeast, and for the price, US-05, very versatile, ferments nice and clean. I'm used to fermenting with it. I like what it gives. Daniel Pitts, is it okay to go straight to grain brewing over extract as a beginner? Of course it's okay. Of course it's friggin' okay. The beauty of the community that we've got and the information that you've got to hand in this BrewTube community that's on YouTube is vast, knowledgeable, and there's more than one way of doing it, more than one method. The wealth of knowledge that's there for you to be able to go from brewing a kit to jumping straight to all grain makes it a much easier and smoother transition than if this community wasn't here. And I would say that for me, once you've got the basics down of all grain, you can then work on your kettle skills as you're going forward in your home brewing career. And that's all part of the fun of brewing. So yeah, you don't have to go from kits and work your way up to all grain. I didn't. I went from kits straight to all grain because of the community and the help that it provides you. It's friggin' awesome. So just friggin' do it. Kurt Thomas, he says, have you had any craft beer from Canada? No. Nope. I friggin' haven't. Am I missing out? Tom Ben says, what's happening with Harry Brew 69?
All will become clear soon. I'll be charging you for this, you know. Google dollars.
Paul Delaney. It says, what fans do you use in your old fermentation fridge? Old fermentation fridge? Friggin' old fermentation fridge. PC fans. The power for the fans is just using a phone power supply, like a landline power supply, that just comes off the plug behind the taps and just goes in a little hole in the side of the fridge, and then it's wiring up two fans, and I've got two in there, one on each side, so they're really pushing the air around. So it's a nice cheap little fan to do the job. And then it's put, when is best to treat water, pre-mash or mash? The best way to treat water is pre-mash and mash, and the reason why I don't treat the hot liquor that's in the HLT is that I don't use all that water for the mash. So I'll fill this HLT up and I won't just put in what I need to mash. I won't drain the HLT completely and that's my mash water. I'll fill the HLT right to the top, get her up to temps for mashing, and then I'll probably, let's say, use half of that water to mash in, so that there's half of the water still up at temps, which means that I could top that water up above the Herms coil. It's not cold water in there, it's slightly cooler than what I was mashing in at, so that I can get them temps up quickly to recirculate. So I don't treat the water that's in there because I'd be leaving some of the treatment behind. So for the minute I just put the water additions straight into the mash and it just recirculates and mixes everything round. For the minute that's what I'm doing. Neil Gold, would you like to discuss the merits of your Herms system compared with a Herms setup that uses a much smaller body of water to heat the coil, i.e. a kettle? So Harry, who we were just talking about, when he had the shop, someone asked him if he could make a little Herms coil that fit inside a cheap Tesco kettle, and he did. I'd say it's much easier for me, where I've got my Herms coil in the big pot, to recirculate for one. So when I use the Herms coil, when I'm recirculating the mash, I'm not just recirculating the mash through the Herms coil and back out into the mash tun. I'm also recirculating the water that's in the HLT. So if you don't recirculate the water that's in your HLT, you've got your elements at the bottom which are heating up the water, obviously, and that's going to be at a different temperature to the water that's at the top of the HLT. So while you're recirculating it, you're getting a more accurate reading of where your HLT water's at, which gives you an more accurate mashing temp when you're using the Herms coil. And the fact that I'm using the water that's surrounding the Herms coil in the HLT to brew with as well, so it makes sense obviously to have it there instead of having it in a separate bit of equipment. And I hope that helps. And that's it, fellas. That wraps up a Q&A. Absolutely awesome that you've sent in so many good questions, so many questions so quickly. It means that I can get this video pretty damn sharpish. Had a really, really good response for this Q&A, and it's all down to you, fellas. It's all down to you, because without you, I wouldn't be friggin' doing this. So big thumbs up to you guys, and a big thanks. I hope I've been as helpful as I can. Go and check out them people that I've said to check out, and that's it, guys. That is it. So as always, don't forget to thumb up this video if you don't want to do. Don't forget to hit this little icon here, subscribe, click it, and you want to see what's coming up next. Share the video, get it out for all to see. And until next time, I'm out of here.